Welcome in, everyone, to Barely Educated. We have a special show for you today. Thanks to the influence of one Buddy Bryan,
But Brian,
we
I
will be
am
joined momentarily by Alex Kuhn.
sorry, everyone. I got a frog in my throat today, so I couldn't quite get the Buddy Brian out right. Sorry, Buddy Brian.
Alex, yeah, Chris is struggling here. Alex is a producer at 670 The Score. So that's fun kind of person to be talking to. We'll talk about how the whole last week went in his line of work. I think it's going to be fun for everybody. So we'll have him on in this episode, and then we will also preview Bears Niners. There's actually football to talk about instead of just the coach, though it's kind of hard not to just keep talking about coaching stuff. At any rate, besides the frog in the throat, Chris, how are you?
Doing all right. It's a busy week. This is Christmas concert week for the school and all the groups I'm part of. So I think that's part of why my voice is my body's like, oh, just hang on. You're almost there. You're almost there.
What?
Tis the season.
Yep.
All right, we are pleased to be joined now by Alex Kuhn, who is a producer on 670 The Score. So that is fun. I've got lots of questions I want to ask you about that, but we're going to lead with the Bears because Alex, they've had a bit of a newsy week. How did you take the news? Well, actually, a week ago, right about now, as we were live when the news broke. That was fun.
Yes.
But how did you
Yeah.
take that news on Eberflus being fired mid-season?
Well, I actually listened to the podcast, so a lot like you guys.
Nice.
Thank you.
No, it's funny because my morning, I think, went a lot like your guys did because you're reading the tea leaves a little bit. I got into the office. I was worked all that day, so was on the air the entire day, and I got in at like 8 o'clock and wondering first, are we going to hear Matt Eberflus speak? He is always scheduled to speak via Zoom at 9 a.m. the day after a game. So we wanted to know whether he was going to speak. And we didn't get a Zoom link. We were wondering what is going on. And then he did speak. And then after that, I thought, okay, well, they're not going to fire him today after making him speak to the media and taking some really brutal questions from Bears reporters. And and then they did. Like 2 hours later, I'm sitting on the board. My boss, Mitch, walks in behind me and tells me he's out. He's been fired. And that's when I saw the Tom Pelissero report. That's when clearly you guys saw the Tom Pelissero report. And you're happy that they made the move because they absolutely had to make the move. But you're like, well, you just made him talk to the media, and that makes you think, how are potential candidates around the league going to interpret that? So now we're looking at a coaching search. We're seeing all the power struggles. It seems like the dynamic between team president Kevin Warren and Ryan Poles. You know that we know the history of how these things have worked in the past, and it's just a really fascinating time in the soap opera that is the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, they never cease to provide content, do they?
No,
It's like-
never.
I mean, I was openly laughing, just hysterically, at the fact that they made him get up there and meet the media one more time. It was like they were punishing him. And I'm just like, I'm so glad he's gone, and I don't want to celebrate someone being fired until I see that he makes like 20 grand a day. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, this is not like the regular world firing. But to your point about how the rest of the league views it, do you think that most candidates will just quickly forget all about it if and I mean, money talks, right? And like we see these agents kind of leaking all this information, it feels like too. I think maybe we care more than the actual candidates will, at least I hope.
Yeah. Well,
But
did you
you
guys
probably
see?
have a better feel for it than I do. So
Well, look, I'm not an insider. I'm a producer at 670 The Score who gets to. I mean, you guys are plugged in. You hear the content on the score. I mean, the our hosts talk about this stuff 24/7. They talk about the dynamics of the front office. the history of how these things have been handled. And I don't think necessarily that one press conference is like gonna sway every coach out there. It's a long line of things that have happened to make candidates wonder, is this organization truly thinking about changing? Did you guys see the Albert Breer report before Thursday Night Football about Ben Johnson last
But
night?
hey,
He sure did.
prepare your interview for my counter questions, right? That's what that was. It's
Hmm.
everybody's
Yeah,
really up in arms about it too. But I'm glad they're doing it that way. Like he's got a lot of leverage. Let's change this thing. Do you think though? Because I kind of wonder if they're not getting enough credit. Maybe it's Warren, and man, Lord knows I've been hard on Warren for the stadium nonsense. But are the Bears, and maybe specifically Warren, not getting enough credit for the fact that they did do something drastically different here? Like
look,
there is a big difference in the midseason
yeah,
firing. So I'm trying to look at it from every angle.
yeah. There's no question about that. I think that for me, I have been in. For those of you who don't know me, I worked in Cedar Rapids, Iowa City, and co-hosted a sports talk show there for about 6 years.
Okay,
And
great.
Nice.
obviously, on top of covering Iowa sports, the next biggest story, it's a minor league market for Chicago.
Hmm.
Tons of Cubs fans, tons of Bears fans. So I was able to kind of see how this organization works. And yeah, there's no question that they are doing things differently, right? Like around the edges, and not even around the edges. Like they've never fired a coach in season. Now, that's all well and good, but they still have the best quarterback maybe that they've ever had.
Sure looking
And
that way.
it looks like that, right?
Hmm.
So
Definitely.
if at the end of this they go out and hire the wrong guy, then none of that stuff matters. That's kind of my excuse me, that's kind of my point here. Like, yes, they do deserve some credit.
Mhm.
And I think Kevin Warren, if you look at him now, what type of influence is he going to have on this coaching search? That's going to decide whether or not the Bears get this right, really.
I think they could stumble into it just via the presence of Caleb Williams too. Right? Like he's got so much potential that he's obviously going to appeal to the major candidates. It seems like he already is. And you
Yeah,
have the Ben Johnson's agent
yes.
connection starting the QB collective. So I'm like kind of optimistic about that.
Well,
So I guess let me transition to like what would you actually like in a coach? Are you an offense background only guy? That's what I am. I could care less about the rest of it. I think leader of men is like the bare minimum.
oh,
If you have to say it, you've already
oh,
got a problem. It should go without saying that they're going to lead. So I
Yeah.
want offense background. I don't have a single defensive candidate I'm interested in because it's wrong for Caleb.
yeah. Look, I'm an offensive background person
Nice.
myself. I my younger brother Gabe. He's you can catch him on 92.9 ESPN in Memphis,
Oh, I
hosting
lived
the
in
afternoon
Memphis
show.
for 7 years. So old
Oh,
stomping
nice.
grounds. Yeah.
Yeah, he played at Memphis. He played offensive line at Memphis, and they had some of the best
Nice.
offenses in the country while he was there. So for me, I love offensive football. But
Amen.
yeah, like I think we're now seeing in the NFL sort of a transformation where you're merging the analytics with smash mouth football. And that's why I really think Ben Johnson, this entire time, even going back to last year, has been at the top of the wish list for the Bears because he's innovative. He's one of the best play callers in the NFL. And he builds his offense around the personnel. Like they built one of the best offensive lines in the game. His run schemes are very diverse, and they have a lot of weapons on the outside with a quarterback who's not all that mobile, but really good off of play action. So I think when I'm looking at a head coach, I want to see someone who's innovative, but also doesn't lose track of the fact that one of the most important things for the development of a young quarterback is to give them a run game that can produce explosive plays too. So I love seeing this in the NFL where for a long time running backs don't matter, the running game doesn't matter. That was always crap. It was always ridiculous. And now you're seeing offensive minds that can do both, and that's what I want to see. Someone who can develop a quarterback, take some pressure off them with the run game, and get their team. I heard Kyle Long on the score the other day, former Bears offensive lineman. He's like, when you watch the Lions, you can tell that their players, when they're out there, they see red. Like they are just playing with reckless abandon, and we're now talking about that as a very important aspect of a new head coach. And I think that in this city, with a heritage of fans that grew up seeing the Bears play a physical brand, like it can mesh well with old school and new school. You can do both things and still be successful.
Absolutely. I think my issue with leader of men and culture setter comes down to the pendulum swings with the Bears. So they tried out with Fox after Trestman. Didn't
Yeah.
matter. They try it with Eberflus. Come on, that's what he was supposed to be. He was terrible. He's honestly the
Yeah.
worst coach I've ever seen late in a game. In any point of my football life, I've never seen somebody more incompetent in the final 2 minutes. He's horrible. So, like, you're going to upgrade in some way. I want someone who's intelligent
Yeah.
and articulate. And I assume being a leader, it goes without saying on
Doesn't
some
it
level. Like,
doesn't it almost feel like somebody stepping in and saying, "No, you guys have hired a lot of yes men. We need to stop doing that." Like
that's true too.
Yeah.
It almost feels like projection from the Bears. Like, no, we have to go out there and we have to hire an ass kicker or whatever. Like, you can hire somebody that is intelligent, that knows what they're doing, and everything else is going to fall into place. If they command the room well, if they show that they have answers, that they can build something around their players and get their players to play very hard for them, you can win games. And that's what Dan Campbell's showing. And
For
I know
sure.
you say you don't like defensive candidates. And I don't think that this
Mainly
guy is
because I have Caleb, right? I want to maximize
right.
that. That's the
Absolutely.
thing.
Absolutely. But like at the college level, I heard you heard Marcus Freeman being mentioned from Notre Dame. Don't like that at all.
Nope.
I think that if there is a college candidate out there that fits well in the NFL, not necessarily with the Bears, it's Dan Lanning at Oregon.
I was just going to bring him up. Yep.
Yeah, because even though he's a defensive guy, you watch his teams play and they do see red, like Kyle Long was saying, and his players respect him. They play very hard for him. He's incredibly smart. That play earlier this year against Ohio State, where they took the 12 men penalty down the stretch and the clock ran out on Ohio State, and he's like, "Yeah, we planned that."
That's brilliant.
Yeah, brilliant situational football, physicality, and like you said, offensive innovation. And there's a whole wave of young coaches out there that can bring all of those things.
And go for it on fourth down.
Yeah, I mean, what were they, 6 of 7 last night on fourth down? That's another thing I love about Ben Johnson. When you need a play, he usually has one.
Seemed to be at will, yeah.
They even converted when Goff fell. That's how good the rest of it was done.
That's exactly the polar opposite of what the Bears have been under Matt Eberflus.
Yeah, and so they were playing hard at first under Eberflus, but I think another part of this that maybe doesn't always get mentioned a lot is if you're winning enough, there's going to be even more buy-in.
Yeah.
So why did the team stop being so especially on defense? I think the effort tailed off a little bit because he screwed up the end of the Washington game.
Yes.
Because they ran a sprint option to the wrong side of the field against the Colts, and then it just stacked all this incompetence. And of course they're going to quit buying in. Because
the offensive coordinator on 3rd and goal called a dive with the backup center out of a formation that had converted 3 out of 3 times in either getting a first down or a touchdown. The Roschon Johnson running that trap on the goal line or on 3rd down. In a key moment in the Washington game, the offensive coordinator calls a fullback dive with a backup center, and the head coach doesn't get on the headset and say, "Nah, that's probably not a good idea."
I mean, I've said over the last several weeks, the biggest issue, and because I was trying to find silver linings with him, I like how he played young players and trusted him and stuff like that, but he just doesn't coach in the moment where you need him to coach. That's
Yep.
what kept happening. Stop the
Situational football.
coordinator.
Yeah.
Yep. Call the timeout, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that was an interesting moment because I obviously he deserves all the blame for that.
Mhm.
Um, and I heard a segment of people out there like, well, Caleb, he took a terrible sack and he needs to call the timeout himself. I'm like, yeah, well, that's true. And Caleb Williams has not been anywhere near perfect. And I think that's kind of helped at least my expectations coming into this season. I saw him play a lot at USC and Oklahoma, and I'm sure you guys did as well.
Mhm.
And I didn't necessarily think, oh, this guy's going to come into the league right away and be Patrick Mahomes. You saw some ridiculous comparisons, but what I thought was, you need to be patient with this guy. He's going to make rookie mistakes, and you need to have a coaching staff there to back him up. And that's what makes the Shane Waldron hiring so egregious, right? They interviewed 9 guys for that position, including Thomas Brown, who
Mhm.
was obviously the better candidate for your young quarterback, gives them some structure, some direction, and is very direct as a communicator and has clearly a better feel for what they need to do to get the ball out of his hand quicker and get the ball to playmakers the way that it needs to happen. And Liam Cohen, the offensive coordinator for the Bucks, was in that search. Zach Robinson was in that search. Cliff Kingsbury was in that search.
It's a wide
And they
net.
said, yeah, and then they said, no, we hired the best. Here we go again. Dynamic leader of men, and nobody around the league was saying that about Shane Waldron. Like, I remember last year, Chris Emma, my colleague at 670 The Score, was pointing out some of the Pete Carroll press conferences where he's like begging Shane Waldron to run different formations and try to get the ball to some of his playmakers. And then, yeah, like I remember Anthony Herron, my coworker,
Mhm.
before the season,
Love him.
talking about how this exact thing. Like, he's just not a take charge of the room type of guy. And for whatever reason, this is the person that they entrusted to handle their young quarterback, and it was a horrible decision.
It's exactly why I think leader of men is nonsense, right? Because they said that, and then
Yep,
that's what they land on. He's like the opposite of a leader. Just,
yep,
just don't say stuff like that, is what I'm asking them. In the
yep,
process, I get that Warren's over polls, and so he's going to have say. I mean, when Green Bay hired LaFleur, they had 5 people in the room the whole time, including the president. It's kind of how business works. There's a big debate about like who's responsible for bringing Flus back because I don't think we have an answer there. It's
yeah.
hard for me to think you could talk McCaskey into firing him if he had 3 years left after a 5-3 finish.
It is the whole like who hired Eberflus
Yes.
and and who was the one that signed off on him coming back. Like, that mystery is just gonna live on and bears infamy for
Yeah. So like
forever.
if Poles was determined to keep him, then he needs babysitting
Yes.
this
Yeah,
year. But if he was like, well, I would have, but then I couldn't, and now I gotta act like I love him, then I don't know where to go with any of it. But let's
yeah. Because like you think back to Hard Knocks, and they were really featuring Matt Eberflus and trying to make him look like a likable character, and in certain capacity he was. But I wonder who really wanted to have him come back last year. Whose
yeah.
decision was that? Was it the ownership?
Mhm.
Like, oh no, we like this guy. He's one of our friends, and we really like him representing our football team. We love the country club dinners with him.
They
Or
really
was
are
it
all about the guys that they just get along with. That's been one of the fundamental issues.
yes? Or was it the general manager who has kind of been tied at the hip with him, who came in with the same agent, Trace Armstrong?
Yeah, that's a fun
Yeah.
one
It,
too.
we don't know. Like
And he
it
seems to have blind spots for his guys. It took forever to cut Valus,
Yep.
so like
yep.
there's a lot to parse there. I know Chris wanted to ask you about a couple things too.
Yeah. We brought up Thomas Brown a few minutes ago. he has an opportunity now over these 5 games to make a statement, whether it's for the Bears or for another team. And he certainly seems to have that commanding presence that Flus did not have. And Caleb and the offense have undoubtedly made huge strides in the last couple of weeks under his leadership. So, do you think that Thomas Brown has a legit shot to become the Bears head coach? Or do you think this is just, we're going to write him out because things have been better under him, and then we're going to go do the bigger search? I guess I'm just wondering, how serious of a chance does Thomas Brown have, do you think, to really say, I should be the Chicago Bears head coach?
Yeah, I think he has a chance. Like I like Thomas Brown, and I like what I'm seeing and hearing from Thomas Brown. I think a lot of people who watch the Bears offense have been calling for these types of personnel changes, like the personnel usage. I should say. I watch JT O'Sullivan in the QB school
Oh yeah.
every week, and he's like, "Oh, you guys are starting to figure out that DJ Moore has some versatility, and you can line him up all over the field. Congratulations, this is amazing." So he's an impressive young coach, and that's why I love the fact that he gets 5 weeks. I wish he had longer. I wish he had a little longer,
Yeah.
and also a longer time of being the offensive coordinator too, which he should have been all season. But I think in this situation, he does have a chance. If they go out and go 3-2 and beat the Packers, or if they go 4-1 and down the stretch and win some games here, and he shows that down the stretch of games, he's not going to make horrible situational flubs like Matt Eberflus did, and he knows how to use his challenges. And,
Amazing. I hope he goes and wins his first. I think it'd be hilarious. It would also be hilarious if he immediately wins a Sunday road game.
yeah,
Both of those would just crack me up.
or on like field goals, he figures out how to patch up the left side of the line.
Imagine. Oh man.
Dare to dream.
So, like, do you guys what do you think? What do you think about his chances to get this job?
I think they're pretty good, even though the interim thing doesn't have a great history. But I mean, I'm a historian. I'm a professor of history and archaeology. So like, it only takes one example to kill that whole idea.
Yeah.
Where it actually works. But that is kind of one of the things that people are going to mention. What fascinates me about his candidacy is you could stumble into not completely wasting Caleb's rookie year and learning a new offense in the offseason if you ended up getting good performance out of Caleb and Thomas Brown the rest of the way, and you keep Thomas Brown. Like that would actually help them in their own bass-ackwards Bears way. Not have wasted the rookie year. And thought, I just love that thought. He's my second candidate. Like it's Ben Johnson, then him, out of available names.
I agree. Like
I'm assuming McVay, Shanahan trades are pipe dreams until proven otherwise.
And it's something I also do think they should explore if there's somebody, if the 49ers are willing to
for sure,
take a second this year and a first next year, you make that deal in a heartbeat. But I agree, it's probably a pipe dream at this point. But I think he does have a legitimate shot. And my question is, do they see, oh, well, he can be our offensive coordinator. Let's bring in a Mike Vrabel, a defensive-minded coach, and try to patch this whole thing together? Because let's remember, they have a history of doing this where the coaching staff isn't quite aligned.
Which I hate.
Shane Waldron was hired, and he didn't get to hire his own offensive line coach, the most important thing you get to hire if you're an offensive coordinator usually. Chris Morgan was already there. So I could see that situation where they try to bring in a defensive coach and say, well, Thomas Brown will remain as our offensive coordinator. I just wonder how that would all work. But
I hope they don't do it, but nothing is out of the question.
Right. You just never know with this franchise.
But if he has 5 weeks as a head coach, is he going to want to go back to being an OC?
That's a great question.
So.
Yeah.
You,
Or will they get offers out from other teams?
yeah, or go be an offensive coordinator somewhere else as
True.
if they didn't give him the head job. So the one thing is I don't they don't have a clear leader now, and that's okay. Take your time on this.
Yeah,
Make
true.
sure that you don't rush into anything and pick the person who's you got to pick the person who's the best candidate. And it's okay right now that we don't know that. It's going to be an exhausting search, but it's okay. They have to get it right. They can take their time on it.
At least it'll end earlier than the Fields Caleb fanboy wars
Oh.
of 2024. All right, while we have you here, and I know you got to go in a minute, I have a couple radio questions because it's just too fun to not talk about that here. And
Two
I'll keep them
longtime
sort of
Score fans,
lighthearted.
yeah.
How long does it take in pre-production and whatever else you guys call the meetings to actually be ready for one of like the 4-ish hour shows? Like, what's that process like? I'm just really curious because it's referenced on air, but there's never any real details. Are you guys there like 6 hours to prep for a 4-hour show, or how does that work?
I guess it really depends on the host or the talent and the producer, but like our producers are amazing. It's 670 The Score, so we're constantly pulling audio and communicating with hosts about hey, we have this. This could be a segment here. We just send a rundown with all of the time slots and run down just a roadmap. It can change at any given moment, but I think it's a lot of stuff that in this business we sort of what we like to do and our job gets blurred. So we're constantly already working on finding topics, things that are interest us, or like with the Ben Johnson, the Albert Breer report last night. I knew right away. I'm like, if I were doing a show today, send it to the host. We're doing a segment on that. So meet for half hour before the show, map out the show, and we're ready to go.
Nice.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
What's your favorite Score moment that you've been directly a part of?
Well, I mean, I'll go on Friday with
Okay, all right. So you were at work for that, of course.
Yep. had to pod down a caller, Paulie from the north side, I believe. And say, hey, Paulie, sorry, I apologize. But yeah, Matt Eberflus has been fired.
So the show is moving in a different direction.
Yeah, we'll take your call a little bit later. Yes.
Yeah.
Very nice.
All right, I know we're out of time. Thanks so much for jumping on.
Yes,
Before we
Alex,
let you
thank
go,
you.
tell the good folks where they can find you.
You can find me on X or Twitter, whatever it's called, at Alex Kuhn 523, on Instagram at Kuhn Kuhn 523, and if you want to follow me on YouTube, been churning out some Bears content lately. You just search my name, Alex Kuhn Kuhn.
We'll put a link to that in our show description so people
can guys.
Click on it and get to you. Yeah, Alex, thank you so much. It was great to have you here.
Anytime. Thanks, guys.
The Bears.
All right. Well, again, thanks to Alex. I have a feeling we'll have to do this again several times, perhaps before it's all said and done, at least a couple times in the off season, maybe after the coach hire is made. But yeah, that was great stuff. All right, Chris, we're a week out. Happy anniversary. 1 week of Matt Eberflus firing.
You're fired.
A pretty epic moment for our little podcast. I heard from all kinds of people out of nowhere.
I did too.
High school friend I hadn't talked to in 20 years. Shout out to high school friend Jamie. Got a new one.
Jamie.
It's too bad that Chris is under the weather for these now.
I'm sorry.
Our old friends Keith and Steven from the seminary gig reached out, and they're not really even that big of football fans, I don't think, but they listen. I mean, it was fun. It was a crazy week as far as the Bears go, and they keep it crazy in general, but that really moved the needle more than normal.
Yes, it did. And about Keith, I think he could be Josh Allen's brother. You know, they got some similar features there. You know, well, except one being a pro football player. And the other. I was trying to be nice about it. Jeez.
No, you don't be nice to Keith.
All right, yeah, it's true.
He's all about the sarcasm.
That insolent blackguard.
I think the press conference probably deserves some attention, right? Since that's the big thing that's happened between our recordings. Are you that worked up about Warren's involvement? Because I don't really care because I don't have enough answers on the rest of it. Somebody might need to babysit this process, and the president's going to be involved if big money's involved. That's how organizations work.
Yeah, I agree. I don't have a problem with it, especially if Poles was the reason Flus was not let go sooner, or if he was the reason Flus was maintained for the beginning of this season. So,
and how much did he have to do with hiring Waldron, which was also a
right,
complete mess?
right,
So, like,
yeah.
we don't know so much.
Mm-hmm. And for all this time, for people to say the Bears need a football guy, the Bears need a football guy at the top, and now there is one, and he's taking charge. There's some frustration, like, oh, what's Warren doing? So make up your mind, Bears fans.
Yeah.
Which way do you want it? So as of right now, I'm okay with it. I don't mind.
And look, I'm not that impressed with Kevin Warren.
Right.
I think he's the king of corporate speak. I think he comes off a little bit disingenuous because of that. Hasn't really done much on the stadium, though I think there are reasons for that involving inheritance and taxes and, 100-plus-year-old matriarch.
Ooh.
The second that they start building that, her portion goes through the roof. I think he's filibustering. And they can't come out and be like, well, if Mama just died, we'd start the stadium. I mean, they're not going to do that.
No,
so
you can't do
I'm
that.
just trying to keep an open mind and trying to read this thing from every angle. And
Interesting thought.
most teams have a committee of their own employees in the coaching search. The problem is when the Bears go outside, hire dinosaurs like Bill Polian, and lo and behold, two of the three finalists are people associated with the Colts. Wow, color me surprised. That's what I want them to avoid. Okay. Warren just doing what you're right. People have been wanting this, and now we're getting it. I don't think we're allowed to get that upset yet.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean I'm necessarily impressed by him either.
Yeah, I agree.
And I thought the other remarkable thing from the press conference real quick is Ryan Poles looked like somebody kicked his puppy off the freeway.
He sure did.
I mean, just what is going on with the demeanor? To me, that makes it seem like he didn't want to get rid of Flus. And he's like, man, I can't believe this didn't work out. He looked like he got really, really neutered badly by the way this went down.
He sure did. Head down the whole time.
Dressed differently, head down the whole time. It was like 10 seconds to answer that one question, to start answering. So
yeah, and
I have questions, man. I have a lot of questions. I'm not going to freak out. They have a great opportunity here because of Caleb and the roster, and no one's going to care who the owner is if the pile of money is big enough.
That's right. I'll do it. I'll be the new head coach.
Oh no.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, I agree. Seeing Pole's body language too made me think either what you just said, or he wanted to do it but was prevented, and now he's taking the blame for it, which he's frustrated about as well. That I suppose that could be a possibility too, but we may never know for sure. But he definitely seemed neutered. That's a good word that you.
There are like two stories in here that I need the full breakdown from the Sun-Times, the Athletic, whoever. The hiring of Flus and keeping him. I'm calling that all one thing. Right, the both of those, the dynamic, because he didn't get to really do a search, Poles.
Yeah.
But then he speaks so glowingly of him. You're like, okay, but you could tone it down a notch if he wasn't your guy. So I'm very confused. And then I want to know who really made the call to fire Eberflus midseason. And if that's Warren, then he's the most trustworthy person in this thing at the moment. Okay, we are running short on time. I don't have too much longer. You probably don't either.
Yeah.
Guys, did you know there's a football game Sunday?
There is.
Involving the Bears? There's a game to talk about.
And it matters now.
The Bears at their home away from home, where they are 5-0 against the Niners. Niners favored by 4. A lot of injuries on both sides of the ball. I feel like we're getting robbed of what could have been a better matchup by that. Inside the numbers, when the Bears have the ball, they are 26th overall offense in yardage, and the Niners are 5th defensively. Other side of the ball, the Bears defense, the mighty have fallen
Mm-hmm.
22nd in overall yardage per game.
Oh man.
Niners offense 7th. That one surprised me.
Hmm.
So they're 5th and 7th in the two in terms of yards. And everybody's like, yeah, this team sucks. They should trade their coach to the Bears. And I'm like, man, they're 5 and 7 for all kinds of crazy reasons. Injuries is probably the biggest one.
Yeah,
It's an
absolutely.
old team. I know Brian Baldinger described it as lacking team speed. And then I look at 5th and 7th and I think, how am I picking the Bears here?
Are you?
Because of the interim coach bump, buddy.
The Bears.
And I'm picking with my heart, which is probably a problem. I need them to get off the losing streak. I need Caleb and company to get a win. I'd love to shut up the Sunday road game stat. I have my reasons. None of them make a lick of sense applied to this specific matchup. Here's the best I can do for the matchup. Their injuries are probably more devastating than the Bears, and the Bears injuries, there's a few of those guys that could play. We just don't know sitting here Friday morning.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Bosa's not playing. McCaffrey's been shut down.
Yep.
Trent Williams might not play. That's a ton of talent.
Yep.
And I think the Bears that played the last couple games can beat this banged up Niners team. And if it was at home, it wouldn't even be a difficult call. But they're absolutely dreadful on the road. So that makes it hard. But I'm going to pick the Bears 24-19.
I love the Bears.
That would be fantastic. And I think they're going to be a lot looser. I think they'll play like a big weight was lifted. I agree. I think the Bears do win this game. I was trying not to be a homer about it, but, looking at the facts, because, they have played much better, even with Flus there, and he's not going to be there to screw it up with some kind of weird, bad final 2-minute decision. So, I'm going to go with the Bears, too. I'm going to say 23-16.
All right. Well, the game last night was fun.
Yes, it was.
Go Pack, go the home.
And then we got Vikings, Falcons. I don't really care that much about that game. Vikings are going to win it.
Yeah.
The division's crazy. It continues to be crazy. And
So
all three of them are going to make the playoffs.
Yes, they are. Fantastic. All right.
We got a franchise quarterback right when the division's never been better. Woo!
Hey. Yeah, fantastic.
All right. That's all I got. I hope everybody enjoyed Alex being on here. Chris,
Yes.
anything else?
No, I hope we can get him again soon. That was a lot of fun. Thanks, everyone, for listening to this episode of Barely Educated. We will talk to you next week and recap the Niners game and look ahead to, is it Detroit after that, I think, again? Whoever it is. We'll be here. Take care. Bear down.
That's an important part of having tactics.
Will you shut up, man?
Listen,
You're fired.
Packers lose.
I love the Bears.